Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Dusko, scholar, researcher, and a former conspiracy theorist when things get deep. Years of research have brought me here, as I have stumbled upon an unsolved case, which, according to that country's government, has been pronounced solved. But, to many of the public opinion's minds and my own, I believe it to be unsolved. Because there's way too many conspiracy theories for the government to literally just say, hey, it's solved. So join me, ladies and gentlemen, as we take a trip to the motherland of Russia. And here we are. We have arrived in the motherland of Russia. Our key location is this high, not too far from where the case took place. The temperature is negative 21 degrees and negative 5.8 Fahrenheit. So, join me, ladies and gentlemen, as we discover the Dyatlov Pass. Warning, this video contains graphic images of real-life events that may be unsuitable for some viewers. You have been warned. Viewer discretion is advised. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy this documentary. On January 25th, 1959, a group of 9 experienced ski hikers from the Ural-Polytechnical Institute began a trek up the Ural Mountains top Kolotsiakol, which is translated in the Mansi language of Mountain of the Dead. Their goal was to reach Ortorin, a mountain 10 kilometers to where the incident took place. Despite a criminal investigation involving the Mansi tribe and numerous documentaries and theories of other causes to their death, the case remains unsolved. This is my investigation of the case of Dyatlov Pass. These mountains that you see before you are the Ural Mountains. The unsolved case has left it shrouded, as it holds a deep secret. On January the 23rd, 1959, a group of 10, armed with nothing but cameras and journal entries, began to take a trek up to Ortorin. Their first diary entry reads, "Here we are, on the train. We sang all the songs that we know, learned new ones. Everyone goes to sleep at 3 a.m. I wonder what awaits us on this trip. What will we discover? Everybody is wanting to sleep, and behind the window, Ural tiger is spread in all directions." The group on this expedition consisted of 8 men and 2 women, who then took a bus and a train, and then hitched a ride on the back of a truck, then with horse and sleigh, and then proceeded the rest of the trek on foot and skis. These students were around their early 20s. First, the group's leader, Igor Dyatlov, Yuri Doroshenko, Lyudmila Dobinina, Alexander Kolovatov, Zinaida Kalmagrova, Yuri Krivonishenko, Rustam Slobodin, Nikolai Therapy Bricknells, Semyon Zolotaryov, and Yuri Yudin, which unfortunately was the only sole survivor. Now, Yuri had to turn back as he began to feel ill in mid of the trip. Some say he had a lot of joint problems in his knees. So after a few photos, he said goodbye to his friends. But little did he know, it would be the last time he'd ever see his friends alive again. On their last day of the trip, they had reached the foot of a mountain that was called Dead Mountain by the Mansi tribe. Instead of keeping flat towards the forestry, they somehow diverted up to the slope and then decided to make camp. Now these were the last photos that were taken as they were climbing up the slope with their skis, and also examining their last photos and reading the last entries of their diary. The hikers didn't really seem phased of what was going on, as they didn't really sense any fear. They didn't have any issues that they had to be aware of. Last entry of the diary: tired and exhausted, we started the preparation for the night. Not enough firewood. We started fire with logs, too tired to dig a fire pit. We had supper in the tent. It is hard to imagine such a comfort somewhere on the ridge, with a piercing, howling wind, hundreds of miles of kilometers away from human settlements. So the day after the 1st of February, everything went quiet. Nobody had heard any contact from Eagle or any of the other hikers. There was no other photos or diary entries, as the hikers had gone quiet. But the staff at the college were not as concerned, as hikes like this did take a lot of time to reach the goal. But family and relatives became so distressed that on the 20th of February, they had urged a rescue mission, that the staff from the college had volunteered themselves, staff and pupils, as well as the police, had got involved, as well, and the Soviet army. But what they had found was nothing more but a tragedy. The tent was in shambles, with all of the hikers' belongings still inside, and it was cut, small slits on the top and larger slits, enough hikers to get out of. Further indication of the slits that were cut on the tent looked like peepholes, like either the hikers were looking out at something that made them uneasy, and large vertical slits, enough to make their escape. It wasn't until they found the footprints that looked like they were made in a calm and orderly fashion, not running away in panic. The group of rescuers had followed the footprints, how vaguely that they were, right into the forested area, and that's where they discovered something even more tragic. They found under a large cedar tree 2 bodies, barely clothed, abrasions on their hands, as almost like they were cut and ripped to shreds, were the bodies of Yuri Durashenko and Yuri Krivonoshenko. After the 2 bodies were found, the rescue party's attention was drawn to the large cedar tree beside them, noticing the broken branches and the chunks of skin that were embedded into the bark for the hikers. Speculations began to run wild, as numerous questions of what were the hikers trying to achieve while climbing onto the cedar tree. Was they trying to get away from something or someone, or were they trying to look out for something or someone? But not too far from the cedar tree, the rescue party had then found 3 remaining bodies. The body of Igor Dyatlov, who was lying on his back, partially clothed and clenching his chest. Next they found Rustam Slobodin, who was lying face down. He was also partially clothed and what looked like he had suffered a fractured skull. And then they found Zenaida Kolmogorova, who was also lying face down and also partially clothed. So while Yuri D and Yuri K and Igor, Rustam and Zenaida had been found, Alexander, Nikolai, Lyudmila and Semyon had still not been found, as it took the rescue party 2 months. 2 months in spring, with the help of the police and sniffer dogs, they had been found, mangled beyond belief. They had missing facial tissue, missing eyeballs, and Lyudmila was even missing her tongue. Corpses looked barely unrecognizable, but as investigation had begun, with all the bodies now recovered, potential suspects were being made and potential theories on how they died. As the coroner had once put that their accidents were similar to a car accident. Let's have a look, shall we? So we have a fractured skull, broken ribs, minor abrasions on the hands and face, gouged eyeballs, missing tongue, and slight orange pigments on her skin. See if we can do a deep dive on each injury that the hikers had sustained and come up with a theory of our own of how they could have died. And let's take a look and see if something or someone was involved. So after all the bodies were found, then came the examining by the coroner. And let me tell you, this guy, he apparently wrote that the cause of death for these hikers was, and yes, this is legit, so he wrote that the cause of death was a natural compelling force. Now what is a natural compelling force? Well, let's have a look at the injuries, shall we? Let's start with Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonashenko. They had minor abrasions on their bodies, bruising, swelling on the upper lip, and frostbite. Abrasions, that's probably for them climbing the cedar tree, and with them being severely dressed, it is understandable that they caught frostbite and died of hypothermia. The reason why they were so severely underdressed, they may have gone through something called paradoxal undressing, which means the more cold they got, the hotter they thought their temperatures were being. Now let's move on to Igor Dyatlov, who had minor abrasions on his body, bruising, dry blood in his lips, and purple-grey discoloration. Well, he was confirmed to have died of hypothermia, due to himself lacking the essential clothing. Next is Rustam Slobodin, who had minor abrasions on his forehead, a fractured skull, swelling and bruising. Even though his fractured skull was not a major cause of his death, hypothermia because of his lack of essential clothing. Then next is Zenaida Kolmogorova. Numerous abrasions on her hands and her face, bruising and a graze on her nose, but because she had frostbite, her death was caused by hypothermia, since she, as well as Igor and Rustam, lacked essential clothing. Now we get to the nitty-gritty. We focus our attention onto the 4 that were found at the ravine. So Nikolai and Alexander had multiple fractures, open wounds, deformed neck, bruising on the upper lip, and missing a lot of soft tissue around their facial features, and also bleeding on the underlying tissues. A lot of this could be like either scavenger animals, like nitpicking on the soft flesh, as well as next we have Semyon, who was missing his eyeballs and had several broken ribs, which could be amount of either pressure of maybe the ice that might have collapsed onto their bodies, which also could explain the open wounds, because heavy ice, when it's that thick, could have the potential to lacerate. Now we get onto Lyudmila Durbinina, who has been the most key figure in this case. Same with the missing tissue, missing soft tissue, as well as her missing tongue, could be in a potential for scavenger animals, because scavenger animals do tend to go for soft flesh, as well as the broken ribs could be a result of pressure. So after going through all of the injuries individually from the hikers, now we question of who could have done this, or what could have done this. Was it natural, or was it intentional? So let us go through all the possible outlets of what killed these students, and how did they succumb to their horrific injuries. Now the radiation, that only seemed to either deepen the mystery and just further confuse everyone that was trying to solve this case. As they say in their report, which they stated with a question, which I will show you right now, is the clothes were contaminated as radioactive dust fell from the atmosphere, or the clothes were susceptible to contamination when in contact with radioactive substances. But back in 1959, this was during the Cold War era, a lot of nuclear weapon testing. Now let's have a look at the two articles of clothing, shall we? So the range of radioactive particles that were on these articles of clothing was 5,600 dpm and 5,000 dpm. That's just from two articles of clothing. Now onto the third article of clothing. The radiation count from this was a bit higher than the two. That's because there was a bit more radioactive substances on this one, which counted to 9,900 dpm. Now time to blow your minds now, or to blow your minds later. Too bad, I'm going to do it now. These clothes belong to two of the following hikers. And these hikers are Alexander Kolovatov and Yuri Krivonishenko. And you know why they had radioactive substances on contaminated onto their clothes? Is because they have previously worked with radioactive materials. Now, it wouldn't be an unsolved mystery without the conspiracy of aliens and UFO sightings. Now, I'm pretty sure we're all aware that we can't possibly be alone up there. The reason why this theory has come up is because of this one potential photo. If you can see, there's these strange, weird lights into the sky. That must have happened the night before the hikers had met their demise. So let's piece what it could be. It could be a rocket, or a missile, a piece of a missile, an aircraft, a meteor, or space debris. Notice how I didn't list any alien spacecraft or anything extraterrestrial? As I retraced my words, I mentioned that this was 1959, back when the Cold War was going on, and the Soviet Union was doing a lot of missile testing, especially in desolated areas such as the Ural Mountains, places where people would rarely ever be seen or to even go, which would be a perfect opportunity for testing sites. So it doesn't come to no surprise that the military would have to be the first ones onto the scene. So if the hikers were trespassing on their testing site, it would blow the military's operation of nuclear testing. But something in the campsite was actually found, and Yuri Yudin himself, on the Discovery's documentary, Yuri Yudin on his deathbed was asked to describe his friend's belongings, and what was found at the campsite was a admatka, which in English translates to a military boot cover, and you'd have to be part of the Soviet Union or the Russian military to require one. And according to Yuri, none of them had such a thing. But if the military were there, why couldn't they call it in? Do you think maybe they were full of guilt? Maybe because if they're testing, if whatever they were testing was found, of course they were going to cover it up. Because then it would be their fault. Or would it be? Now, because I mentioned the Discovery Channel, I kind of have to talk about this theory. The Gigantopithecus, or the Russian Yeti. Which I don't believe myself because it's so far-fetched. We've not seen like much evidence that such a creature exists now. I mean, yeah, they probably existed like billions and billions of years ago, but the thing is, one has not been found today, really, in this day and age. And I draw your attention to this photo. Now, this is one of the last photos that was taken, as well as the UFO theory. But yeah, this one was taken. And it kind of looks like something or someone is stalking the hikers. Kind of like a desperate photo. But we here at Wolfie and Dusky Sound Studios wanted to Photoshop this picture, see if we could get a clearer image. So by boosting the contrast, this is what we got. And it's not the best because cameras back then they didn't have autofocus at the time. A little bit of a theory, it could have been either one of the hikers or even one of the Mansi hunters that was like watching over them. Because the Mansi had a bit of a superstition about the Mountain of the Dead. Now, because I don't believe in billions and billions of years, creatures still being among us, as it's a very rare occurrence. Although nowadays, scientists are trying to bring back the woolly mammoth and the saber-toothed tiger. So, if that's the case, then we are all screwed. And if there is a Gigantopithecus that has been scientifically created, which is very unlikely, I must say so myself, it is very unlikely. Since such a creature that has not been physically proven to exist. What the hell is that? I don't know what the hell that is. But it sounds like a bear with a really, really bad case of upset stomach. See if I can hear it a bit more. It does sound like it's getting closer. Okay, so our armed guide's looking around with his scope. You can't see anything as yet. Well, we can't see anything as yet. But it sounds like it's getting closer. Pity. The thing I'm talking about. Okay, so you suggest that we retreat into the tent just until it goes. Okay. Well, I refuse to believe that this is the flipping noise of a Russian Yeti. At least, it sounds like an upset bear. But we will be retreating into the tent at this very moment. You can all get lost if you think I'm going head to head to a bear. Excuse me, pardon me, going through. Well, make some room here, make some room. I know it's not big, but at least it's cozy and we're safe. Away from some upset bear. Well, he hasn't been whinging and moaning. Oh wait, there he goes. Yep, that's the bear. I'm totally gonna say bear. Sounds like a bear. Ain't no Russian Yeti, but prove me wrong, people. Prove me wrong. What do you think? Is it a bear or is it a Russian Yeti? Well, let's just go on standby for a bit. And now, we're 26 minutes in, and we shall look into our final conclusion. We've looked at the injuries, we've looked at where the bodies were found, and we've even gone through some of the conspiracy theories that might have caused their deaths. But let's go through all of them, shall we? All of them of which what could be possible, and then of what the Russian government that have finally put a closed lid on this case. But will it be truly solved? We may never know. So let's have a look at all the theories, shall we? Avalanche, escaped convicts, military cover-up, Mansi, the stove, UFO, infrasound, KGB, secret launches, ball of lightning, the Yeti, gravity fluctuation, methanol poisoning, Arctic hysteria, shrooms and snowmobile. 16 bloody conspiracy theories for these hikers' death. And to be honest, one of them to me sounds very, very likely. The rest seem very unlikely, as I may say so myself. Although, makes sense in certain areas of expertise. But the first was the Mansi, but they were cleared. Discovery Channel's theory was the Yeti, but cannot be fully proven. But the Russian government have said and closed the case that the Dyatlov hikers died from an avalanche. Do you think that's it? Case closed? Not in the slightest. The area was tested to see if an avalanche did occur, but it was proven that an avalanche did not occur. But my theories are, and the first clue is, the footsteps. The footsteps show that they walked in a calm and orderly manner, not running away in panic. So there's no way that there would be an avalanche, because they would be running, not walking. My second clue is, why did they leave the safety of the tent? Because if there was a danger on the outside, surely they would stay in the tent for their safety, as that is their sanctuary. It would only mean if there would be a danger that would be inside the tent. It's a fact that experienced hikers would tell you, if there is a danger outside your tent, you would stay inside your tent. And the third and final clue, that these students were experienced hikers. I don't know why this detail seems to slip, but yeah, they were experienced hikers. They've been on hikes before and all that. And even in their diary entries, they were happy, they were at ease, they were having a really good time together. But there were simple mistakes easily made where they forgot on one of their journeys, they forgot to set out early enough, so they were a bit late, which could cause them to be a bit tired. And the most possible outcome of one of their mistakes is cooking their dinner on the stove, especially when they are eating inside the tent on their last night. And there could be the tentacle caught smoke, and so they cut small air holes so the smoke would go out so they wouldn't be breathing it in. But if it was too much, they would then cut large horizontal holes so they could make their escape. But also look at this picture that they took of someone posing in a burnt coat. He looks pretty happy with himself, doesn't he? So it wouldn't be the first time it would have happened. It could have happened a second time. And then, due to the horrible injuries, could have been caused with overwhelming amounts of pressure from probably ice, from melting ice. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this documentary, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think. And what do you believe? What did kill the hikers? Do you agree? Was it the avalanche? Or could it be a simple mistake just like the stove? I'd love to know more. But anyway, my name is Dusko, and this has been a Dusko Discovery.